One of the ideas that have been floated out for supporting the new comprehensive district design has been this thought of equity by design. So if we look at the University of Southern California, their Center for Urban Education, they have 5 principles for creating equity by design, which is part of this broader work. I'm unfamiliar with the Harvard work that he mentioned. I'll talk about what I am familiar with and as a non-K through 12 specialist, but the idea of equity by design is something that isn't just in K-12 education, it's also in higher education. So for point 1, clarity in language goals and measures is vital. We do not have any of that in the CDD. If we were following a true equity by design, we would have, this is our target goal for closing the achievement gap in science and engineering fields. This is how we're going to close it in English and language arts. We don't have any of that. We don't have any concrete programs, so none of that is clear. We don't have concrete language on these are the types of programs we're going to create, which is the beginning step of that. We don't have any of that. So we don't have any, like the first principle is completely out. The other part, equity mindedness, should be part of the guiding paradigm. So there's equity language throughout the CDD, but what it doesn't have is equity in practice. Communities of color have not been consulted on this. Teachers of color have not been consulted on this. Staff members in the school of color have not been consulted on this. And so we have equity in language only, but not in mindfulness, not in actually reaching out and building relationships with communities of color, and even beginning with the communities of color that the school district has the easiest access to, their own students and their own employees. Principle 3, equitable practice and policies are designed to accommodate differences in students' learning. One of the groups that's going to be most impacted by this whole policy are students with special needs. And we know that for communities of color, we have disproportionate, meaning more, students with special needs than the broader white population, but it hits all population groups. We do not know what's going to happen with this population group, which is terrifying for the students who have special needs and for their families. It is very, very difficult to find a school that will work with students and their needs. Families who live through this can tell you. Students who have experienced this can tell you. So we don't have this idea that, oh, we're going to work with these students differently, more mindfully. We have the exact opposite. We're going to uproot you out of your school and with the professionals, the educators you're used to working with, and send you to a completely different school. And we don't know where your teachers, support staff are going to be. We don't know who's going to educate you in the new building. We don't have any of those plans. So we don't have practice and policies designed to accommodate this group of students in the CDD plan. For communities of color, American Indians are protected with their American Indian education programs within various schools in the district. But what about the students who aren't enrolled in those schools that are American Indian? Because they don't educate all American Indians. We don't know what's going to happen with them. We don't know about African American students, Latino students, Asian students, Hmong students. We don't know how the different communities of color are going to be treated with the new plan. We just know they're going to be uprooted and disrupted and forced to attend schools they're not currently attending. So we don't have any equity practice and policies to accommodate the different learning of these different students. The few programs where we have more of these practices in place are going to be dismantled. The program at South Minneapolis, South High School, that high school is going to be radically changed with who is going to be allowed to attend there, who is not. Communities of color who are widely sending their students there now will be forced to attend different schools based on their geographic location. We have a school that is still facing achievement gaps, but has found a way to better work with students across their differences and with different groups of students. That's going to be completely dismantled. So we don't have an existing program that the rest of the district could follow. We have other middle schools, elementary schools, where these practices that are beginning to make a difference are going to be dismantled with no plan for how that is going to be replaced, except trust the school district, they're going to do what's right. Any person of color in Minneapolis will tell you, if they've gone through the school district, that you cannot trust the school district to follow through on their promises. That is why so many of us have been adamant about having concrete budgetary numbers that will support and not disappear so that our children can be educated in successful programs or programs that will have the funding to grow and have a bigger, more positive impact on educating our students. One of the schools that has had success and that I hear families with special needs and educators who specialize in working with students with special needs has been send your students to Dowling, because they've created a community there for students with special needs, a way that integrates them into the school, throughout the school in meaningful ways. And that program is now going to be disruptive. A school that has created a nucleus, a successful group of educators to educate students with special needs and work with their families is going to suddenly disappear. And we have no idea what's going to happen to those students, to those educators. The district begins to lose the history of success that they can draw upon for how do we replicate successful programs across the district, because when you disband successful programming, no one believes that a new program as successful will be created and supported with hard budget money from the district. And so there's a lot of fear. It's much harder to educate certain types of special needs for students when key resources are no longer concentrated in one program or one school building, and now we're potentially looking at these key educators who do this important work having to be in their cars driving from school to school like they used to have to do before, spending most of their time on the road instead of in the classroom or in the building working with these students. That's just one example. And a lot of parents are very fearful of this. And it takes a long time for any student to build trust that the adults they're working with really care about them. And so we're losing potentially months of helping educate these students. The final fifth principle, equity must be enacted as a pervasive institution and system-wide principle. What the CDD does is it gives us only words. There's no intentionality for the programming we're going to see. There's no budget to support the programming we're going to see. And as anyone who studies institutions and organizations will tell you, if you want a program to disappear, you take away their hard, dedicated budget, and it will disappear. Nowhere in the budget that's been released by the school district is there any dedicated money indicated in the budget for the programs that will close the achievement gap.